Hey guys, welcome to PoliMetrics. We take the hot policy debates everybody's arguing about and actually look at what the data says. No partisan spin, no ideology, just evidence. So today I wanted to talk to you about something that you've maybe thought about before, but never super in depth. Unemployment insurance. We've got a massive problem that almost nobody's talking about. Okay, let's start with a quick thought experiment. Let's say you lose your job tomorrow. Maybe your company decides to restructure, or maybe AI finally comes for your industry, or something like that. You've been working for years, paying into the system, so you file for unemployment. But what if I told you that depending on where you live, that safety net might have some pretty giant holes in it? What if I told you that states like California and New York, places with massive economies, are basically broke when it comes to unemployment insurance? All right, let's start with the basics. Because unemployment insurance is one of those things everyone thinks they understand until you actually dig into it. First off, it's not welfare. I can't really stress that enough. You and your employer have been paying into this system your entire working life. It's insurance, just like car insurance or health insurance. Except instead of protecting you from accidents or illness, it protects you from job loss. Every state runs its own program with its own trust fund. Think of it like a giant piggy bank that employers pay into through taxes. When times are good and unemployment is low, money flows in. When times are bad and lots of people lose jobs, money flows out. Now, to measure whether these piggy banks are healthy, there's this thing called the average high cost multiple. Don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with acronyms, but basically it tells us if a recession hit tomorrow, how long could your state pay benefits before the money runs out? Score of 1 means that your state could pay for 1 full year of recession-level unemployment without borrowing money. That sounds pretty reasonable, right? 1 year should be plenty of cushion. Here's where things get pretty wild. As of right now, only about 18 states out of 50 meet this supposedly minimum adequate standard. Let that sink in. 32 states can't even cover 1 year of recession-level benefits. But it gets worse. Some states are in absolutely terrible shape. Pennsylvania, they could pay benefits for less than 2 months before going broke. Ohio might last maybe 5 months if they're lucky. And California and New York, their piggy banks are literally empty. They're already borrowing money just to pay current benefits, and we're not even in a recession yet. 4 states right now owe the federal government $27.8 billion. That's billion with a B. California alone owes $21.3 billion. To put that into perspective, that's more than the entire GDP of Iceland. Here's the important thing, though. When states can't pay back these federal loans fast enough, can you guess who gets stuck with the bill? The employers. California businesses are now paying unemployment taxes that are nearly 10 times higher than normal. Imagine trying to recover from a recession while your unemployment taxes go from 0.6% to 5.5%. So you're probably wondering, if the federal government says 1 year of reserves is adequate, why are so many states struggling? Here's the thing nobody wants to admit. The federal standard is not that great. It hasn't been for decades, and we have the data to prove it. During the Great Recession, 19 states entered the downturn with that supposedly adequate 1 year cushion. Want to guess how many of them actually stayed solvent? Only 11. That means 8 states, 42% of the ones that met the federal standard, went broke anyway. It's kind of like having a smoke detector that only works 60% of the time. Would you trust that in your house? Back in the day, the standard was actually a bit higher. In the mid-20th century, states aimed for 18 months of reserves, not 12. But sometime in the 1990s, federal officials decided that that was too conservative and lowered the bar. Essentially, they made the test easier, but the recessions didn't get any easier to handle. Washington, D.C. actually ran the math on this. They simulated what would happen over 2 business cycles: boom, bust, recovery, boom, bust again. The federal standard, it was barely enough to survive one recession, let alone rebuild for the next one. It's kind of like designing a bridge to handle normal traffic, but not bothering to think about what happens during rush hour. All right, now this is where the story gets really interesting and where a lot of politicians have been getting it completely wrong for decades. Most people think unemployment insurance is just about helping individual workers, which it is, but that's only half the story. It turns out UI is also one of the economic tools we have for fighting recessions. Here's how it works. When unemployment goes up, UI payments automatically go up too, without Congress having to pass anything. All that money goes to people who just lost their jobs, and guess what they do with it? They spend it on rent, groceries, gas, all the stuff they need to survive. Now you might think, well, duh, of course they spend it. But economists have actually measured this effect, and the numbers are stunning. Every dollar of unemployment benefits generates nearly $2 of economic activity. That's not just helping the unemployed person, that's propping up the grocery store, the gas station, the landlord, the whole local economy. During the pandemic, we saw this in real time. When the federal government added that extra $600 a week to unemployment benefits, something crazy happened. Unemployed people actually started spending more than they did when they had jobs. Think about that. We literally reversed the normal pattern where losing your jobs means cutting spending. Which brings us to probably the biggest myth in American politics, that unemployment benefits make people lazy. You've heard this story a million times. Politicians love to say that if we just make benefits a little smaller or a little harder to get, people will magically find jobs. Sounds intuitive, right? Make the safety net less comfortable and people will get work to get off of it. There's just one problem. That's completely nonsense. Let's look at what actually happened during the pandemic. The federal government was paying an extra $600 a week, way more than normal, and everyone was freaking out that nobody would want to work. The Federal Reserve actually studied this. You know what they found? Job finding rates went down by about 22%. That sounds bad until you realize that 22% is actually way smaller than people predicted, and most recipients weren't turning down job offers. When researchers looked at the overall effect on unemployment, accounting for both the work disincentive and the economic stimulus, the net effect was basically zero. The extra spending from higher benefits created about as many jobs as the reduced job searching lost. It's like the economy was balancing itself out. And when you look at other programs, the evidence is even clearer. Take food stamps. Researchers found that when states imposed work requirements, 23% more people left the program. Great, right? Except there was literally zero increase in employment. Zero. People weren't leaving because they found jobs. They were leaving because they couldn't navigate the paperwork. Arkansas tried work requirements for Medicaid. 18,000 people lost their health insurance in 9 months. Employment didn't go up, but medical debt sure did. So if punitive work requirements don't work, what does? Well, unemployment insurance actually has this really clever feature that most people don't know about. It's called an income disregard. Basically, how much you can earn from part-time work before your benefits get reduced. The idea is simple. Instead of creating a cliff where you lose everything the moment you earn $1, you create a slope where you can gradually transition back to full-time work. And here's where my own research actually comes in. I've been studying what happens when states increase these income disregards, when they let people earn more while still getting some benefits. The conventional wisdom says this should cost more money because you're paying benefits to people who are working. But you know what I found? States that raised their income disregards actually saved money. Their trust funds got healthier, not weaker. You might ask, how is that possible? Well, it turns out there's this thing called the stepping stone effect. When people can take part-time work without losing all their benefits, they're more likely to take those jobs. And part-time jobs often turn into full-time jobs. So instead of someone being unemployed for 6 months, they might get unemployed for 3 months and then work part-time while transitioning to full-time. The result? Shorter overall unemployment spells. More people back to work faster and more money flowing into trust funds from payroll taxes. It's like the policy pays for itself. Now here's why all of this matters right now, today. We're starting to see some pretty concerning economic signs. Job growth has been slowing down. We only added 73,000 jobs in July, and the government had to revise the previous months down by 258,000. Manufacturing has been losing jobs for 3 straight months. Economists are putting recession odds at about 35% over the next year, and they're expecting unemployment to rise to 4.6 by mid-2026. Now that might not sound like a lot, but remember, 32 states can't handle even 1 year of elevated unemployment without going broke. But here's where it gets really complicated. Politics. The Trump administration has been pretty clear that they're not thrilled about sending federal money to states that don't cooperate with their policy priorities. California and New York, the 2 states with the biggest debt problems, are also the 2 states most likely to clash with federal policy. So we could be looking at a scenario where the states that need the most help are the least likely to get it, right when their workers need benefits the most. All right, so we've established that the system is broken, the federal standards are inadequate, and we might be heading for trouble. So what's the fix? First, states need to stop pretending that meeting federal standards means they're prepared. If you're in a state with a volatile economy, lots of tourism, energy, construction, you need way more than 1 year of reserves. Think 18 to 24 months. Second, we need to fix the revenue side of things. Most states only tax the first $7,000 to $15,000 of wages, but they calculate benefits based on much higher wages. It's like having insurance that only covers the first $7,000 of your car, but paying claims based on the full value. States like Washington tax up to $50,000 in wages, and guess what? They have much more stable revenue. Third, we should implement automatic triggers. Instead of making politicians vote to raise taxes during a recession, which never happens, build in automatic adjustments that kick in when the fund gets low. Fourth, expand those income disregards I mentioned. Let people work part-time while collecting benefits without creating bureaucratic nightmares. My research shows it actually saves money while helping people get to work faster. And finally, at the federal level, we could tie those low-interest loans to states actually being prepared, not just pretending to be prepared. Look, here's the thing about unemployment insurance. It's not just about individual workers, though helping people when they lose their jobs is obviously important. It's about the whole economy. When the next recession hits, states with strong unemployment insurance systems are going to recover faster. Their workers will maintain more spending power, their local businesses will stay afloat, and their economies will bounce back quicker. States with weaker systems, they're going to see deeper recessions, slower recoveries, and a lot of unnecessary human suffering. Generous unemployment benefits don't make people lazy. They make economies more stable. The modest effect on job searching is completely overwhelmed by the positive effects on local spending and economic activity. Right now, we have a choice. We can fix this system while the times are still relatively good, or we can wait for the next crisis to remind us why we need it in the first place. And that wraps up our episode of PoliMetrics. I hope I've convinced you that unemployment insurance is way more interesting and way more important than you might have thought. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the data, definitely subscribe for more episodes where we'll tackle the policies that actually shape our economy. And hey, if there's a topic you're curious about, let me know in the comments. And remember, evidence over ideology. The data tells the story. We just have to listen. I'll catch you next time.